JavaScript from beginner to advanced. Today I would like to learn you how to create a dynamic div with a unique ID in JavaScript. I will propose for today to create an HTML, and inside this HTML we have a button. When we click this button, do you see this button here? Add a new div. Okay, when I click this button I create a new div. After I click again and I create another, and so on. Finally I will put a condition to stop this repeated creating divs. Okay, let's see the source of this code. This is the source of this code. I have here the CSS, this button, no, add div button, this is the button. Okay, I have a container. This container, you didn't see the container because don't have nothing text. Okay, I make a reference. I select the button document get element by ID method. I selected the container also document get element by ID. I can to use a document query selector. Document query selector is better, but in this code I put document get element by ID. After I create here a function on button add event listener, where I create an element div, and on this div I add content and I put an ID. Look at this new div.id equal div, a string div, plus div counter. Div counter is a variable that I put here, is a counter to generate unique ID for each dynamic divs. This variable is for to keep track of how many divs have been added and to ensure that each div has a unique identifier. No? Okay, let me to follow on my code this div counter. I have here this counter equal 1. Okay, because I want to start with 1. That means first div have 1. Okay, ID div new div.id equal div plus div counter, div plus 1. That means div 1. Second div that I will generate is new div has ID div 2, the third div 3, fourth div 4, and so on. After this I add some class for styling. New div.class name, all div will have this class dynamic div. Dynamic div is in CSS here. Look, this is attributes for this class. Here is content editable equal true, but that you can edit this, but doesn't matter here. And also here I set additional attributes with this method set attribute. With set attribute and callback with two parameters, the name of attribute and the value, you can set an attribute for an element of HTML. And here I have set attribute. This is div string plus div counter. Div counter also is this who start from 1 title. When I go with my mouse on a div, appear this tooltip on hover, appear this is div 0 1, sorry, because I start from 1, div counter start from 1. In final, I div counter plus plus, I increment the counter for the next unique div. Okay, let's see how it works. Click for first time, hello world 1. Let me to inspect this. What ID do you think it appear here? ID div 1, no, ID equal div 1. Why? Because my counter start from 1. Correct? Correct. And if I change here and I put 2, I change and I put 2. Now let me to restart. Add new div, hello world 2, ID equal div 2. Why? Because I start from 2. I start from 2 and I receive this div 2. And the text content is hello world plus div counter, probably, no? Let's see. Text content is hello world plus this div counter. That is why appear here hello world 2, because div counter in my case div counter in my case is 2. Okay. And if I put here 0, let me to edit as HTML. Here I put 0 div counter. Okay, I refresh. Will appear hello world 2 y. 2 seconds. I can modify here. It's also it's also 2, but why don't modify? I modify. Okay, I restart the page. Okay. Restart the page and now modify. Now should work. Okay, I modify div counter, now is 0 div counter, and doesn't work because I am on the server. I run on the Visual Studio Code. Okay, now I modify on Visual Studio. Div counter equals 0 here. Okay, and will appear hello world 0 because I have div counter starting from 0, and hello world from 0 because I have text content plus div counter. Do you see now I can use div counter for create also new number for ID. Now is a counter, and this have ID. What ID has id equal div0, next id div1, next div2, next div3, and so on. And now you can manipulate it, you can iterate through it, you can manipulate each div separately. Now let me to put an if to stop. I don't want to add after 5 clicks, I don't want to appear divs, I want to appear a text. You can't add more divs. And for this, what approach I have? I have a div counter, no? And I say if div counter is greater than 5, alert a message and return from function. If you use return, you exit the function, no? And don't be executed the function that are below this return. Okay, let's put this function in this add event listener at begin. Div counter in outside. Okay, let's see now the result. If div counter is greater than 5, alert you can add more than 5 divs. Probably the internet doesn't work very well because I restart and nothing happens. Just loading. No problem, I will take this code. And I will put in another editable area in this JavaScript playground. Wow. Problem internet. Unbelievable. My old laptop doesn't work. awaiting. No, it's not a promise, but I'm waiting. In this way, when you create a promise in JavaScript, you should to await till a function or something will be resolved or reject. Until now, to be the connection of internet to be with success. Okay, it's with success. Okay. I click hello world. I put the condition if div counter is greater than 5. That means I click on the click number 6. I have a message 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you can add more. And I receive this, you can add more than 5 divs. Now I have let's see in view source. This is the function. I put a condition if this div counter who start from 0 is greater than 5, alert this message and return and exit the function. And this is the result. You can add more than 5. I click OK. I click again and nothing happens. Okay. You can use this variable div counter for create contours. For example, when you create a clock, a chronometer, and other like this. But also you can use this counter to keep tracking for something. Keep tracking for how many clicks you give on some div, or after how many clicks do you want to make a change on your code. Important is that when you want to make a change after a number of clicks, you should to create a contour. I create here this contour div counter for keep tracking for my IDs, because without this counter, okay, let's see, without this, let div counter without, let's comment this, let div counter, I comment div counter, let's see what happens. Now I don't have this variable div counter for tracking code, tracking ID numbers. And in the code I have new div.id div. I will have probably div, just div for all my divs, or I have here this is div plus div counter, this is div plus undefined. Okay, let's see. Okay, I take this code. I get the code from my Visual Studio and I will put in this playground JavaScript editor. but I don't know what is with this connection. I click the right part of mouse and appear loading on my desktop. Unbelievable. Should have patience. Paste and awaiting again a promise. Okay, here I comment this div counter now. Let's see what happens. Add a new div. I click. Nothing happens. I decomment. Okay, now works because I decomment this. Where is div counter so important in my code?